So question number 47, what is a seller disclosure? How does it affect me? And this is our 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask. So a seller disclosure is a legal document. It's included when making any and all offers in Northern Virginia, right? And so it requires that the seller provide previously undisclosed details. And it's really the seller giving their perspective of the property, like what is wrong with it, what are the age of things. Now, I used to sell real estate in New Orleans and Louisiana. And in New Orleans and Louisiana, there is much more details that go into the seller disclosure process that is kind of lost in Northern Virginia because this is a buyer beware state. So the seller disclosure doesn't have the same teeth that it does have in other states. So you should know that if you're going to be buying a home in Virginia. Now, in Virginia, the owner of the residential property, they shall furnish to a purchaser the residential property disclosure. And again, this document doesn't really say much. It really just says what they're not going to do versus some states that actually tell you the age of the property. If they know of any defects, this is a different state. So you have to go into the purchase process knowing that you're not going to know much information about the property from the seller. And a lot of sellers, when we're taking listings, a lot of sellers just will not tell us about the property or the condition of the property because Virginia doesn't require it. Now, they're not supposed to mislead you to any degree, but in Virginia, there is no requirement to tell you about the condition of the property. So you will get this disclosure document before the property is listed. So before the first showing, and this document is handled on the sales side. The buyer will get this document when they place an offer on a particular listing. This document is really designed as I would say like a CYA document for the brokers and the seller. So this is why buyers have to get home inspections. Home inspections are really going to be your only defense against buying a property in Virginia where disclosures are more it's just a one-page document. There's nothing really, there's no real information on it. So you have to take your home inspection very seriously. I would even say you have to take your first showing very serious as well. If there's anything that kind of throws you off while you're viewing a property that makes you think that the seller is potentially hiding something, then that red flag should be acknowledged. You can't look past that because there isn't any going back and forth with the seller about something that they should have known. All right, so the disclosure from the seller just states that the buyer should review the residential property disclosure statement, which really doesn't say much. Now, what is the seller saying in this statement? So a couple of things. The seller is saying that the condition of the property, they don't make any representation of the condition of the property or its improvements, which is weird given the fact that the seller is the person who made the improvements most likely. And also they lived in the property, so they would know about the improvements, the condition of the property, but they don't have to do that in Virginia, right? They are disclosing that there are no current liens, that they're not telling you whether or not there are any sex offenders in the area, whether the property is located in a flood and hazard area, whether or not the property has radon. I mean, again, there's really not much the seller has to disclose in these scenarios. Now, on the lien side, since they're saying that they don't know if they have any liens, which they would, but that's another point. Your title search will uncover any liens, right, that were placed on the property while the seller owned the property. So you do have some protection there. As far as flood insurance, our flood or hazard area, your insurance agent will be the person who kind of walks you through that part of the process. So there's some protection. Virginia law states that there could be a legal liability like this. Again, the seller disclosure doesn't protect you. So you can't buy a property in Virginia and expect for the seller to give you any information that is going to be useful about the property when you are purchasing, right? So buyer beware. The best thing for you to do is to get a home inspection, and on your very first showing is to be paying a lot of attention to some of the telltale signs of somebody who's trying to hide things from you. So what are some of the things that we look for when we're trying to find out if the seller is a little deceptive? Well, one of the things we look for is if you have a basement that is underground, right? So it's not a walkout basement, it's below grade. That means that there's dirt around it. Then if there's fresh paint on the walls, if there's fresh flooring, if there is a dehumidifier in the basement, then there is some moisture issue in your basement. You just have to know that. You have to know that there is going to be future moisture issues in the future. There's going to be future moisture issues, and this person is already trying to mitigate that problem. Another thing to consider when you go into a bedroom, particularly the owner's suite, if the owner's suite has a portable fan, right? Like something you could just get from Walmart or a big box store, then that means that that room, if they have a fan or a heater, right? Either or, then that means that that room is probably not getting either enough air or enough air or hot, right? Now, some people do sleep hot, some people sleep cold. So that's not going to be a true tell, but it does give you just a little bit more information about how the owners are using a property, because the way the owners are using a property is usually a sign of what are the deficiencies or the defects in said property. Another thing you want to look out for is in the backyard. If you ever see like these little ball head patches of grass in the backyard, or if you ever see there's a little spotting in the backyard with the grass, that usually is a sign that there is water flow issue, right? Now, what that water flow issue is, what causes that issue, you may not be able to determine in the backyard, but if you ever see grass that doesn't grow properly, then that's usually a sign that there is some type of water flow issue. Okay, so those are just a couple things to consider. It's again, it's not a sure bet. The best thing you could do, since property disclosures don't have the type of teeth that they do in other states, is to make sure a home inspection. Okay,